The cold she didn't talk a booth wind outside the studio gates had a sharp bite that morning. It wasn't snowing, but the chill had a way of slipping under clothes and wrapping around bones. It's a kind of cold that didn't just touch the skin, but pressed into the heart. Yana de Armas stood quietly near the side of the set, arms folded tightly across her chest, her shoulders curled inwards like she was trying to disappear into herself. No one really noticed her. Past extras laughed loudly as they took selfies under the gray morning sky. Cameras were being wheeled out, lights tested, directions shouted. The world was moving fast. As it always did before a major shoot, Anna didn't say a word. She wasn't shivering from the wind alone. She had arrived early, before the trailers were even unlocked, and sat by herself on the edge of the loading platform. Not crying, just still. Her hands were red from the cold, and her face was pale, but she kept her expression calm. It's like she had trained herself not to show too much. It had been a hard night. Not because of anything anyone said, but because of everything no one said. She had been feeling more like a shadow lately. It's just another figure in the background. Everyone thought she had it easy. That success had made her unbreakable. They were wrong. Her mind kept looping back to a conversation she overheard the night before. Someone at the after party, she didn't know who, had muttered, "She's good, but not unforgettable." It wasn't shouted, it wasn't cruel, but it pierced deeper than most insults could. Not unforgettable. The words echoed inside, or like cold wind through empty rooms. Now, as she stood on set, silent, cold, and unnoticed, those words clung to her like frost on glass. That's when he walked up. Keanu Reeves had just arrived. There were no lights flashing around him, no grand entrance. He didn't come with assistance or noise. He came quietly, always did. He walked with a kind of stillness that made people stop without realizing why. He didn't speak, didn't ask if she was okay, he just noticed. His eyes scanned the scene, not the equipment or the crew, but the people. On her, the small tremble in her fingers, the way she kept her back against the cold steel wall, how she looked at the ground, avoiding everything. Then, without a word, he reached into his coat pocket, pulled out a deep gray wool scarf, one that looked soft and worn, like it had traveled with him through many winters, and slowly walked over. Anna didn't look upright. Then she felt it. The scarf was placed gently around her neck. His hands didn't brush her skin. He didn't rush it. He wrapped it once, then twice, snug but not too tight. She looked up, startled. Her eyes met his. He said nothing. He just gave her a small nod, the kind that held more meaning than most sentences ever could, and walked away. Not towards the director. Not toward the cameras. He stood by the heaters and watched from a distance, hands in his pockets, letting her breathe. Anna stood frozen in place. Not from cold, but from the warmth that had just wrapped around her throat. She touched the scarf gently. It smelled faintly of cedar and winter. No one had noticed her all morning, but he had. And without asking her to explain, without asking her to be strong, without expecting anything in return, he had seen her shaking. And he had acted. Not as an actor. Not as a celebrity, but as a human. That moment stayed with her, because sometimes, when your whole world feels like it's slipping, all it takes is one quiet act of kindness to remind you you're not invisible, and that was only the beginning. What Anna didn't know yet was that this scarf, this moment, was going to change everything for both of them. Because kindness doesn't end when the scarf is handed over. Sometimes, it starts there. And sometimes, kindness carries a secret weight of its own. Something she didn't know. He noticed Sidina kept the scarf on for the rest of the day. Not because of the cold, though it helped, but because it made her feel held. That simple piece of fabric had a weight to it, not physical, but emotional. It was like carrying a silent message across her shoulders. You matter. I see you. You are not alone. Nobody asked her about it. Nobody said a thing. And that was the strange part. In a place where everything was rehearsed, where every moment was scripted and timed, the most honest gesture had come without a single word. But Anna couldn't stop thinking about it. She found herself glancing at Keanu throughout the shoot. Not in a curious way, not like a fan, but but like someone trying to understand something gentle that didn't quite fit the world. Around them, he didn't act differently after that morning. He didn't wait for thanks or seek attention. He didn't even bring it up. But that made it even more powerful. He just kept being himself, quiet, present, respectful. When the cameras weren't rolling, he helped the crew move equipment. He brought coffee to the hairstylist who looked tired. He listened more than he spoke. And when he laughed, it wasn't loud. But it was real. It made people relax. Anna started noticing the little ways he moved through space. He opened doors without making a sound. He never looked at his phone during someone else's scene. He gave his full attention always. One evening, 3 days after the scarf moment, Anna stayed back late. The set was clearing. Extras were gone. The lighting rigs were being lowered, and one technician's voice echoed as he called out instructions. Anna sat on a crate just outside the wardrobe tent, sipping tea from a paper cup. Her feet hurt, her back ached, her heart was heavy, though she wasn't sure why. She hadn't spoken to her father in months. Not because they fought, they just drifted. Her life had changed so quickly, so loudly, she barely had space to breathe, let alone call. But she missed him. And that missing came in quiet waves like now. In a dark corner of the set, surrounded by silence and cooling air, then, out of nowhere, Keanu appeared again. He didn't startle her. Somehow, his presence never did. He simply sat down beside her, a comfortable distance away, and looked ahead, not at her, just forward. They sat in silence for a moment. Anna didn't speak. But inside, something was trembling again. Then he said, quietly, sometimes it's not the cold that gets you. It's the loneliness that rides with it. She turned to him. His voice was soft, but steady, like he knew exactly what she was carrying. I didn't mean to, she started, then paused. She didn't know what she was apologizing for. He gave a small shake of his head. You don't have to explain. His words fell like a blanket over her, not heavy, just enough to feel safe. Anna took a deep breath, the kind you only take when someone gives you space to. Thank you, she whispered. It was the first time she had said it aloud about the scarf. He smiled faintly. It's just a scarf. She looked down at it, still wrapped around her neck. No, she said, shaking her head. It's not. He looked at her for a long moment, and then slowly he reached into his jacket pocket again. He pulled out a second scarf, dark green. Softer, longer. He offered it to her. Keep that one too, he said. Anna blinked. But why? His eyes held something unspoken, something deep. Maybe a memory. Maybe a loss, he answered with a quiet voice. Because sometimes people don't ask for help, and sometimes they shouldn't have to. Then he stood. Anna clutched the second scarf tightly in her hands, not knowing what to say. She watched him walk away, once again, without waiting for anything in return. But this time, she followed. Not immediately, not like a child chasing someone, but slowly. Like a person who realized they didn't want to sit in the dark anymore. She didn't catch up with him. Not yet. But something inside her was shifting. And the next day, something happened that neither of them expected. The media caught a photo, not a posed one, not a red carpet shot, just a simple moment. Her standing beside him, both of them with matching scarves wrapped around their necks, smiling softly. Not at the camera, but at each other. And that one photo would light up the internet. But not for reasons of gossip or fashion. It would spread because people could feel it. Something kind, something true, something missing in the world shone. Without trying, Anna didn't know it yet, but the scarf story was just beginning. The photo that spoke louder than words photo went viral by accident. A junior assistant had taken it on his phone just to test the lighting near the trailers. He wasn't trying to capture a moment. He didn't even notice what he had caught, until hours later, while scrolling through his camera roll on break. In the photo, Keanu stood beside Anna. Both of them wore scarves. His was gray, hers a soft dark green. They weren't posing. They weren't laughing. They weren't looking anywhere near the lens. They were just standing in quiet stillness, but their eyes were calm. Their expressions full of unspoken warmth. Keanu's body was slightly angled toward her, protective without being obvious. And Anna, She had her hands gently tucked into the scarf, like it was holding her together. The light had hit them just right, soft, golden. Honest, the assistant, had uploaded it to his private Instagram with a short caption, "Sometimes kindness is silent." He only had 300 followers. But by morning, the photo had been reshared over 1 million times. People didn't know the story behind it, but they didn't need to. They could feel something. Comments flooded in. "This made me cry and I don't even know why. There's so much peace in this image. We need more moments like this in Hollywood." Some assumed it was a scene from a movie. Others argued it was real, but no one could deny the emotion it carried. Anna didn't even know it had been posted until her phone began vibrating nonstop. Texts, tags, articles. At first, she felt exposed, like a curtain had been pulled back on. Something too private. That scarf. That moment was something she had tucked into her heart. But then she saw the comments. One from a young girl read, "Was thinking about quitting today." Then I saw this. "Maybe I just need someone to notice me too." Others said, "I lost my father last year. Felt invisible ever since. This photo made me feel seen." Nana sat with her phone in hand, tears slowly building. Not from sadness, not from stress, but from something more rare. Connection. Keanu found her sitting alone again, later that day. This time she smiled when she saw him. "You saw it?" she asked, holding out her phone. He nodded, folding his arms loosely. "I did." "Okay with it?" He shrugged gently. It wasn't meant to be public, but maybe the world needed it. She looked down. "I didn't know something so small could mean so much to people." Keanu sat down beside her, the same quiet distance as before. "It's not small," he said. "It's human." They sat. For a while, then she spoke the words she had been carrying for days. "I've been feeling like maybe I'm not enough. For this world. For the pressure. For the noise." He turned to her. "You don't have to be everything. You just have to be real." Her throat tightened. Her eyes burned. She looked away, ashamed of the tears beginning to form. But then she felt it, his hand gently covering hers. Not squeezing, not pulling. Just there. Steady. "You don't have to hide that either," he whispered. And for the first time in weeks, she let herself cry. Quietly, freely, and no one interrupted them. No one snapped a photo this time. No crew called for them. The world, for a few minutes, paused when Anna finally wiped her tears. She smiled through them. "I don't know how you always say the right thing." Keanu smiled softly. "I don't. I just listen." A long silence followed. But it wasn't empty. Then Anna stood and took a deep breath. I want to talk to my dad." He looked at her with gentle encouragement. "Do you want company?" Nodded. "Not when I call, but maybe after." That evening, she called her father from her trailer. The conversation was awkward at first, rusty with time and space, but then it softened. Stories were exchanged. Laughter returned. He told her he had seen the photo, told her it reminded him of her as a little girl, clinging to his scarf. During her first winter, she had cried then too, but not from fear, from being overwhelmed by beauty. When Anna stepped out of her trailer later that night, Keanu was waiting, leaning against the edge of a van, sipping coffee. She didn't say a word. She just walked over, leaned her head lightly on his shoulder, and whispered, "Thank you for not letting me disappear." And Keanu, without moving, simply said, "You were never invisible. You just needed someone to remind you." But things were about to change. Because while the photo brought warmth to millions, it also stirred something unexpected in someone else, someone watching from behind the scenes, someone who didn't like what they saw, someone who would soon make a decision that would put Anna right back in the cold. But this time, she wouldn't be alone. The cold came back. But she wasn't. Alaneath warmth didn't last long. Just 2 days after the photo went viral, the mood on set shifted. Not for the audience. Not for the millions who shared the picture and wrote about kindness and silent connection. But behind closed doors, inside the meetings no one saw, the tone was different. Anna's rising presence, the way people were now looking at her. Some didn't like it, especially one man. Victor, the executive producer, had been keeping things under tight control since day one. He was powerful, loud, and always ready with a forced smile. He cared about headlines, but only when he controlled them, and now the photo had taken a life of its own. Anna's gentle presence had become a symbol of quiet strength. Articles called her the soul of the set, but Victor didn't like soul. He liked control. So when Anna walked into the wardrobe tent on Thursday morning, she was met with a cold voice. "You're late?" She looked at the clock. She wasn't sorry, she said softly. Victor didn't look up from his tablet. "We have scenes to prep. There's no room for softness right now. Focus." She blinked. The words weren't harsh on paper, but the tone cut. The rest of the team fell silent. No one said anything. The air was heavy. Anna lowered her eyes, gave a quiet nod, and moved to her place. But inside, something stirred the old feeling, like she was small again, like she didn't belong, like she was just lucky to be here and should say thank you, even when being pushed aside throughout the day. Victor's tone only worsened. He gave passive-aggressive notes about her posture, her energy, even her expression. "Try not to look so tired, Anna. We don't want sad. We want glowing. Do you need another day off?" Every comment was said with a fake laugh. Everyone landed like a slap. Keanu watched quietly. He didn't interrupt. Not yet. He understood timing, but he was paying close attention. Later that evening, after a long take, Anna sat in a quiet corner of the set, rubbing her arms. Not from the cold this time, but from the emotional chill settling into her chest. Keanu sat down beside her. "You okay?"
Yes.
She hesitated. "You ever feel like, no matter how kind you are, it's not enough? It's like people see you as soft, and soft means weak?" Keanu nodded slowly. "Yeah, I felt that." She looked at him. "But you're never afraid to be kind." He gave a small smile. "Because I learned that real strength is quiet. The loud kind fades. The quiet kind stays." She exhaled shakily. "Victor's making it harder." Keanu's face didn't change, but his eyes darkened slightly. "Then maybe someone needs to remind him." Anna shook her head. "Don't. It'll just make things worse." But something in Keanu's posture said he wasn't going to let it go. The next morning, it happened. Victor walked in and loudly declared, "We're rewriting the scene. Anna's role is getting trimmed. Focus is shifting." The room went silent. Anna stood there, frozen. She didn't ask why. She already knew. The photo had made her too visible, too liked, too real. Victor didn't like that kind of attention. "It's a creative decision," he said with a forced grin. "No hard feelings." Anna nodded slowly, but then a voice came. From the back, "That's not the truth." Every head turned. Keanu walked forward, hands at his sides, calm but unwavering. Victor chuckled nervously. "Keanu, always a pleasure. This isn't about creativity," Keanu said. "It's about control and fear." Victor's smile dropped. Keanu stepped closer. "You're afraid of people who lead with kindness, because you think power has to shout." The room held its breath. "But you're wrong." Anna stood completely still, watching Keanu with wide eyes. Victor tried to speak, but Keanu raised his hand not rudely, just firmly. "You can cut her lines. You can edit the scene, but you can't erase what people felt when they saw that photo, because truth doesn't need permission." The silence in the room was deafening. Then Keanu turned to Anna. "You don't need to shrink for anyone. Bring light even in the cold. Don't forget that." Anna's throat tightened. For the first time in her career, someone had stood beside her without needing anything back. And this time it wasn't a scarf. It was a shield. A few people started clapping. Not loud. Just enough to break the silence. Victor stormed out, muttering something about respect, but no one followed him. That night, Anna stood outside the set under the stars, her scarf wrapped tight around her shoulders. Keanu walked up beside her, quiet as ever. "You didn't have to do that," she said softly. "Yes," he replied, "I did. What if it cost you?" He smiled gently. "Then it was worth the price." Anna turned to him. eyes full. Why are you always the one who notices when I'm shaking? He looked at her, his voice steady. Because I know what it's like to be cold on the inside, and no one should stay that way. And though the night was cold again, she wasn't alone anymore, and in the next days that followed, the world would prove it. Because what started as one photo was about to become something much bigger. What kindness started? The World Carrieth News broke quietly at first. An article on a small blog had picked up the moment Keanu stood up to Victor. The writer had been visiting the set that day, shadowing a crew member. They weren't even supposed to be near that part of the studio. They had seen enough. And what they wrote was simple, honest, and powerful. Keanu Reeves didn't raise his voice. He raised his presence. It was louder than anything Victor ever said. Within hours, that line was being quoted everywhere. By morning, the story had reached major outlets. Keanu defends Anna with quiet strength, and silence speaks louder. How one scarf sparked a movement. Kindness doesn't whisper anymore. What no one expected was the response from the public. Hundreds of thousands of people began posting their own stories. Stories of teachers who stayed after school to listen. Nurses who held a trembling hand through the night. Strangers who noticed. The ones standing quietly in the corners. They called it hashtag the kindness movement. People everywhere started sharing photos of themselves with scarves. Not expensive ones. Not for fashion. Just soft cloth wrapped gently around shoulders or necks. A symbol of being seen. Of being held without having to ask. Anna watched it all from her trailer. Eyes full of emotion. She never meant for any of this to happen. She just needed warmth. And he gave it. But now it was becoming something no studio could control when she stepped onto set that afternoon. Something was different. The crew looked at her with soft eyes, nods of respect, quiet smiles. One assistant brought her hot tea before she even asked. The camera operator adjusted lights to give her the best warmth. The costume designer stitched a small scarf design into her on-screen wardrobe. Just a tiny patch, but meaningful. Even Victor didn't show up. He had been reassigned. Rumors said the producers saw the writing on the wall. Kindness was trending, and not the fake kind. Anna's role was not only restored, it was expanded. A new scene was added. A quiet one. No dialogue. Just her walking alone through a winter street, wrapping a scarf around a stranger's shoulders and moving on. Keanu had helped write it, and when it was filmed, there wasn't a single dry eye in the studio. After the director called cut, silence held for a moment, then applause, slow rising. Honest Anna stood there, surrounded by people, but it was one face she looked for, and there he was. Just beyond the cameras, Keanu, arms crossed, soft smile, no spotlight, is present. She walked over and stood in front of him. You changed everything, she said. He shook his head. You did. She hesitated. But you started it. Glanced around at the smiling crew, the peaceful energy in the air. No, he said quietly. We all did. Because kindness doesn't belong to one person. It spreads like fire, like light. She nodded slowly. Then she did something she hadn't done before. She took off the green scarf, the one he gave her, and placed it around his shoulders. Then this belongs to you again, she said. He raised his eyebrows. You sure? She whispered. Because now I'm not cold anymore. He didn't argue. He just smiled. That small, warm Keanu smile that said everything. Then she added, But if I ever shake again, he answered before she could finish, I'll be there. Later that week, Anna received a letter. Handwritten. No return address. Inside was a photo. It was the original scarf moment, but not the viral one. This one had been taken. But secretly, moments after he had wrapped the gray scarf around her neck. No posing, no camera awareness. Just her, looking up at him, surprised. Him, looking back, silent and kind. On the back of the photo were 4 words. Never forget this warmth. She never would, but the story wasn't done yet. A foundation reached out, offering to sponsor a global mental health initiative inspired by the scarf story. They wanted to call it Project Warmth. Their mission, to train schools, hospitals, and film sets to recognize emotional coldness and respond with human compassion. They asked Anna and Keanu to be the faces of it. Anna cried when she read the proposal. And when she told Keanu, he simply nodded and said, "Let's do it quietly." But the world wouldn't stay quiet, because what started with a scarf, what started with one man noticing someone shaking, was now helping thousands feel seen. And yet, just when it felt like the story had reached its beautiful end, the message came from someone neither of them expected. Someone from Keanu's past. Someone connected to a scarf. Years before Anna ever wore one, and the truth that came with it would reveal something. Keanu had never spoken aloud. A moment that made him who he was, and the reason he always noticed when someone else was cold. The story beneath the scarf Anna was sitting in her kitchen. The morning the letter arrived, she had just finished her tea when the envelope slipped under her door. No stamp, no sender, just her name in quiet handwriting across the front. She opened. It slowly inside was a folded sheet of paper and an old photo. The photo showed a young boy, no older than 12, sitting beside a woman on a park bench. The woman's coat was open, and her scarf, deep gray, was wrapped around the boy's neck. The boy was small, thin. His hands clutched the scarf like it was a shield. Anna turned the photo over, and faded ink. Words were written. He always gave first. She opened the letter. "Dear Anna, you don't know me, but I knew him before the world did. Before the movies. Before the silence people admire. I was his neighbor when we were children. I watched him give his scarf to his mother every winter, even when he was freezing. I watched him give his sandwich to another kid who had none. I watched him carry the pain of losing family without ever letting others feel the weight. He never forgot the cold, not the kind from wind, but the kind from being unseen. That's why he saw you, and that's why you must keep going. 'Cause now you see others too." With warmth, a quiet friend from long ago pressed the photo to her chest, eyes filled with a deep ache, but also peace. It made sense now. Keanu's single quote's kindness wasn't sudden. It was planted long ago, born from sorrow, grown in silence, watered by loss, and now, it was blooming in others that afternoon. She met him on a quiet bench near the studio garden. He saw the letter in her hand, but didn't ask. She simply handed him the photo. He held it gently. Eyes locked on the image. He didn't speak for a long time. Then he said softly, "I haven't seen this in decades." Anna sat beside him. "You never told me?" He looked out at the trees, leaves dancing lightly in the wind. "It was never about the past," he said. "It was about what we choose to carry forward." She nodded. Then she added, "Someone told me you always gave first." He smiled faintly. "I didn't know any other way." Anna looked at him, voice tender. "Do you ever miss the ones you gave to?" He didn't answer right away, but then, with a soft exhale, he whispered, "Every day." Anna reached into her bag and pulled out something wrapped in tissue paper. "I have something for you," she said. He opened it slowly. It was the green scarf. He looked at her, confused. "I told you it was yours," he said. Double quotes. "No," she replied. "You gave it to me when I needed it. Now I'm giving it back, not because I don't need it, but because I want you to remember." Her voice broke slightly. "You're not the only one who gives now." Keanu's eyes glistened for once. Didn't hide it. He stood and gently wrapped the scarf around his neck. Then he looked at her, voice quiet. "Thank you." She smiled through the tears. "You always said kindness spreads." "It does." He nodded. "And now it's yours to carry too." Weeks passed. Project Warmth launched in over 20 cities. Hundreds of volunteers trained in emotional response care. Scarves became a symbol not of fashion, but of feeling. Anna spoke at schools. Keanu visited hospitals. And together, without fanfare, they listened to children, to the elderly, to anyone who had once felt cold inside. They didn't just wear scarves. They handed them out quietly, gently saying, "You're seen. You matter. You're not alone." The world didn't change overnight, but one by one, people began noticing the quiet ones in the corners. The ones who shook silently. The ones who smiled even when hurting. The ones who didn't ask for help, but needed it the most in all. because one man noticed a woman shaking and gave her his scarf without saying a word.